Hello dabblers of the internet, JP here with another 3 battle reports covering the rest of day 1 for ConVic. I've decided that if I don't get these done quickly, I'm going to be doing battle reports for this one tournament all the way until December, so it's best to get them out of the way now. So if you're interested in seeing my quicker coverage of how my goblins went in day 1 at ConVic, then please watch on. So for those familiar with my channel, I would normally be doing a single video per round per tournament report. So I get lots of videos out of it, but it takes a while. And I mainly have this approach because I seem incapable of talking any quicker about a game. I don't know why. I wish I could do them like Death by Dragons and Andy2D6 do, where they just kind of put out a whole tournament report. And by wishing, I am doing. So that's what I'm doing today. I'm covering games 2 to 4, so that's the rest of day 1 of ConVic. So ConVic was a tournament that was held in Victoria in August, about a month ago. So I really should be getting done, otherwise I will forget what happened, as is what usually happens to us YouTubers when we leave it a little bit too long. So this tournament is split into 2 days. So 4 games on day 1, and then day 2, 3 games. And the first day is 1,995 points, so smaller game, and then you take that up to 2,300 points for day 2. The same army must be taken, and so I took goblins, and so on the first day you have your 1995 points, and then you must take the same army, but you can take different units. So that is, I guess, you can completely change your whole army if you so wanted, but I did not, because I was painting it all up. So, it's on to round 2. If you didn't watch round 1, spoiler alert, but I lost. It was against MacLeod. It was a grudge match, and so I'm kind of glad that I did cover it in my own grandiose fashion by putting it into its own video. But now we will be going a bit more rapidly through the next 3 games. So I've lost. I've gone down a little bit in terms of submarining, as we call it. So you lose, you go down, you put the periscope up, and you start traveling, hopefully, towards victory on the rest of the games. And so, it was with round 2 that I found my next opponent was Viv and his Basileans. Viv is from, he's not from Direct Misfire, but he has been on their show a few times, particularly with their CanCon coverage that they had at the start of this year. And he's quite a good opponent, and his Basileans are starting to come along quite nicely. And so hopefully in the videos you will see kind of how it looks. He's painting it up as he's going. It's a lot of miniatures, and he's got some interesting inclusion. Particularly, he has the Sanguinius model from the Horus Heresy, so that's the Primarch, as his Julius, Dragon of Heaven. So definitely look out for that. So let's get into this first game, and I'll talk about those lists. So the goblins that I took, and I've already explained them in the first video against MacLeod, but I'll do it again since we're covering 3 games worth in a single video. So, it is my illegal goblins. And I say illegal because I took 3 kings by accident. Definitely by accident. So we have 3 hordes of trolls, 2 hordes of rabble, 2 big rocks throwers, then we have a king with Jareth's Pendant and the Sacred Horn. So the Jareth Pendant gives him headstrong aura, Sacred Horn makes aura bigger. So helps keep those trolls in line, because they have a very large differential between their waver and rout stats. Then we have a king that was upgraded to Groany Snark, because he's just really rude, does a lot of damage, potentially. Then we have a Troll Bruiser with a Staying Stone, fantastic little guy, unit strength going around. 1 Wingit with the Bombs Away upgrade to help those big rocks throwers and act as a bit of chaff. 1 Grupp Longnail, probably one of the best named characters in the entire Goblin list. There's a lot, but Grupp Longnail is fantastic because he's very cheap and he's got a lot of cool little abilities that can really annoy the opponent. Then I have Gorp's Explodomatic Bang Sticks. So that is the formation that is unique to the goblins. And so this has 2 Fleabag Rider Regiments and 1 King on Fleabag. One of them I gave Sir Jesse's Boots of Striding, so at least one of them can handle going through terrain. And so usually, since they're nimble, they're speed 10, you can always find a way to avoid terrain, but not usually for both. So this is where I've gotten in upgrading them, because I don't want to make them too expensive because of their special rule where they damage themselves on 6s. So if you roll a 6 to hit, they do Blast 2, so that's really cool. They double their hits on that roll to 6, but they do 1 damage to themselves. And so over the course of a game, they really stack up the damage, and they're very rarely there at the end. And so I don't want to invest too much into them, because it's a wasted cost, but they are very effective at removing something. and at speed 10 you can usually pick that something. And the King on Fleabag gives them elite aura, so they're even more likely to roll their 6s. So that is my list, and so the way it became illegal was because when you include that King on Fleabag in the Gorps Explodomatic Bang Sticks, it literally is called King on Fleabag, whereas the other kings are just called King. And so whatever is keeping track of the limits for 1995 points, which would say that if you have a triplicate of anything you couldn't add it, in this case you can, because it's named differently when it's in the formation only. If you make a regular king and you upgrade him to on Fleabag, it's still called King, and then it just has the mounted on Fleabag proviso underneath it. So, yeah, anyway. The fact that I was playtesting this for many months, and I even took it to a different tournament and it still wasn't picked up, and I've played against even RC members, it still wasn't seen. It just means that obviously it's not that bad, because it's just an extra king. But were I to change it, I would get rid of Grony Snark, because he is the one that has the least synergy with this list. The Bang Sticks are just too much fun, so I have to keep that king, and I need the other one with Jareth's Pendant, because that helps keep the whole melee portion in control. So what I would drop is Grony Snark, and then I would just kind of shuffle around some points. Not that I have very many to shuffle around, but I would drop Grony Snark definitely, and maybe try and get in the Luggett troop. I've even played around with getting rid of the big rocks throwers in future lists, just because, you know, they do have the liability over a game to do nothing. But when you're taking it in such a big tournament, you know, you've got 7 games here, they did do their work in most games. So yeah, that's my list. Kind of I guess a mixed arms kind of goblins. Not super shooty, not super melee, but it's definitely more on the melee side, and that's especially thanks to that Bang Sticks formation, because otherwise this doesn't really have too much teeth, because the trolls are not that reliable. So let's go on to Viv's list. Viv's Basileans are also quite mixed arms. We have a horde of men-at-arms spearmen to act as a very good anvil, 2 troops of Sisterhood scouts to be chaffy and shooty, 2 troops of Gur Panthers to be definitely chaffy and pretty fast, 2 hordes of Ogre Palace Guard to bring the pain, and then real pain with the horde of Alohi with the Celestial Fury upgrade that will give them +1 crushing strength, so they go to crushing strength 2, but at the expense of 1 defense. And then finally we have a War Wizard mounted on a horse with a diadem of Dragonkind, so his normal fireball gets improved yet further. And then bringing more fireball, we have Samacris, Mother of Phoenixes, who also has heal and Radiance of Life, and Julius, Dragon of Heaven, who is a fantastic mini dragon that just happens to also have fireball. So I keep mentioning fireball because while I was introduced to this list, you know, you read it up as you're about to get the game going and you think, okay, what are the things I need to look for? The one thing I didn't put in my mind, all that fireball. I saw the Sisterhood Scouts, I'm like, this list shoots a little bit. Oh yeah, the War Wizard, he has a bit of fireball, but I didn't add in also that Samacris has fireball, Julius has fireball, and so when we're getting into that 12-inch range, some things are going to start getting quite toasty. So overall, that's the army, 19 unit strength, a little bit lower than mine, a few less units, but these units are definitely a bit more quality, particularly the Ogre Palace Guard and the Alohi compared to my trolls. So yeah, this is the army that I'll be facing, and the scenario will be control. In typical fashion, I forgot to take a picture of deployment, so here's a picture that was taken right after turn 1 for me. So I finished my turn, I've moved up my army, and Viv just starting to move his. So we can still see where most of the units used to be. So what I had deployed were all the Bang Sticks, the Wingit, and the War Machines on the left, and then I had the big block of my rabble, which are in front of my 3 troll hordes on the right, with that nice piece of blocking terrain to protect my right flank. Right on the other side of that blocking terrain, I have the troll bruiser ready to move up, and since it's control, he's already useful by being in some, you know, areas of the battlefield that no one's in, but he can also turn and threaten some flanks and rears. And then I have Grony in the middle, because I like to put Grony in the middle, so he can fly any which way that I need him to. So with Viv's deployment, we see that the Ogre Palace Guard are both behind the forest, which makes sense. He doesn't want them getting shot to pieces. So one's completely I can't see, and one is partially obscured. Not that it really matters, but it's they're quite hidden. Along with Julius, who's in between them, which is the Primarch model, Sanguinius. Then moving up already, using the Saint Celestine model, is Samacris, ready to fireball some of my stuff, and then that big horde is the horde of men-at-arms spearmen, along with the Panthers behind them. On the hill that's plonked right, the massive hill, right in front of his deployment zone, he's surmounted it with 2 of his Sisterhood scouts. They actually scouted up already, and I started shooting at them because they scouted up. And we have that war wizard there on the mount, and then we have that horde of Alohi right behind the hill, hoping to hide, but unfortunately I've got war machines on a hill. I'll know more about that later. And then we have the Panthers in some difficult terrain there because they don't mind it. And so as far as trains go, we've got this massive hill that's kind of blocking there. We have a forest in front of the Ogre Palace Guard, but otherwise there's not that much going on in the battlefield because we've got this big open area in between. So it's good for me because I do not like hindered trolls. That's the worst. So why are my war machines on a hill? Well, if you're not familiar with my first video, ConVic has a nice unique little tournament rule that every game you roll off right before you even pick sides, and whoever wins gets to move a single piece of terrain 6 inches, or up to 6 inches. And my favourite way of using that is to move terrain and put my war machines on it. Because if you got war engines, you want that line of sight to as many things as possible, and this is the best way to achieve it. So that's what I've done, that's why they're there, and then off we went. I got to pick sides as well. So it's a bit of a gamble moving things into deployment zones such as a hill, because your opponent could take advantage of it themselves, but as far as shooting goes, most of Viv's shooting's a bit more close range. And so what happened in my first turn, so turn 1, moved my things up. As you can see, my bang sticks are putting out a threat range that will cover that giant massive hill, so if his Alohi or his Sisterhood scouts jump onto it or go any further, I will be able to pounce on them. So then I went into the shooting phase, of which I have quite a bit of shooting. So I have little plink shooting from my short bows from my Goblin Kings, so that's the King on Fleabag and Groany Snark both have short bows, as well as the other King. So yeah, you can see how it's overpowered now. I've got 3 Kings with 3 short bows. But it was only 2 Kings combined shooting, because it's only 18-inch range, that managed to waver one of the Sisterhood scouts, the foremost one. So that was pretty good. And then my war engines put a bit of damage on the Alohi, but not enough to really do anything, but it's a good start. So that was my first turn, putting some pressure on some things, moving up, and just ready to do this control scenario. In Viv's turn 1, most of his army has just moved up. We've got the Alohi that have just peeking over the hill. They don't want to get that extra height, but they're just getting a sight so they can maybe charge something later, while the rest of the army just moves through, and the Ogre Palace Guard have gotten through most of the forest by moving through. And then what we see is that a lot of shooting has gone on. So first thing is that my King with the Jareth's Pendant, the one that I really rely on in the middle of my army, has been fireballed, quite roasted by Samacrus. Julius wasn't in range. Julius is thinking of some other things, so he's moved around. But Samacrus has roasted a bit, putting 4 damage and wavering my King. Good thing he's got a nice Jareth's Pendant, but even not, if he just kind of sits there for a bit, I think that's okay. And then the rest of the shooting, so we have the War Wizard and then the 2 Sisterhood Scouts, they went into my bang sticks, the closest one, so that's the one with Strider, and put 7 damage on them. So that's usually enough to get rid of them, so they're lucky that they're not wavered at all. But usually that's the sign where you start to lose them, because they're only 13-15, so it's a roll of an 8 and they're gone. And yeah, it's so hopefully they don't have to cop another round of shooting like that, because they will definitely be gone, and that would be very sad for my bang stick unit. But otherwise, that was about it. We can't really see very clearly here, but on the far left, the Panthers have moved up to try and get out of arc of all my different units. They won't get charged. So they're just on the very far left flank. Just trying to do some cheeky stuff, maybe take out my war engine so they don't keep plonking into his Alohi. In my turn 2, I didn't continue really moving my goblins all that much. You can see that they still haven't gotten past that blocking terrain, but what I did move was the Troll Bruiser. He's really jumped up, so he took a turn just getting over that obstacle, but then once he did, he was able to then march and turn, or at the double I should say, and do turn 90 degrees to face his army. What I didn't mention last turn was he did get roasted a little bit by Julius, so he does have that 1 damage on him from a fireball, but he can survive a little bit of a roasting. So that's pretty cool. He's already in a spot where he can't get charged, and he's threatening a lot of flanks. It's only 5 attacks, but it becomes 10, crushing 2, melee 3. That's definitely some guaranteed damage right there. Then we look over here, so this is all taken at the end of the turn. You can see all kinds of damage, damage has been dealt. So where the Sisterhood Scouts once were, that's been now replaced by the Bangsticks, who have copped 3 damage on themselves for having charged something, as well as Groany Snark, who went and killed the other Sisterhood Scouts. So that's 2 Sisterhood Scout units gone, and you can see Grupp there in combat with the War Wizard, successfully dealing some damage so that it's disordered, but that's about it. I didn't kill it, which is unfortunate, but these Goblin heroes are very swingy with their Blast D3, and he only has 4 attacks. Even with Duelist, can be unreliable, that's for sure. But that wasn't the only bit of damage that was done. Over here, the Gur Panthers that were hoping to outdo me and try and take down my war engines have been firebombed by my Wingit. So the Wingit just sitting there and taking care of them and firebombing them. So in this case, what the Wingit's only doing for me is making sure that it just stays alive long enough to go into a control region. Sometimes I use it as chaff, but in this case, it's just too good to not have as a way of putting into one farmost corner and giving my unit strength there for the final scenario. So him just sitting here and being able to firebomb, that is extra value on top. So we've got some wavered Gur Panthers. So yeah, I'm quite confident so far, but the rest of his army is coming up, including the Ogre's Palace Guard, and also the Men-at-Arms Spearmen. So that's a lot of stuff to chew through, and so we'll see how we go. Especially with that phalanx, my bang sticks aren't going to be so effective. Viv's turn 2 comes with swift retribution for the damage I have dealt. First we have Julius that has flown in to attack the middle trolls. That damage dice there is actually on the king. That's the 4 damage from his fireballing. While the 1 unit of Ogre Palace Guard has gone and charged the rabble. Unfortunately, they are hindered, so they are not guaranteed to really do all that much, but they've gone in. At the same time, you can see up in the corner, some of the other Ogre Palace Guard have turned to face that Troll Bruiser I put up there, which is exactly what I wanted it to do, was to kind of distract. Ideally, both the Ogre Palace Guard should have gone straight into the rabble, or some form of extra fireballing should have been happening to those rabble, because rabble are probably pretty easy to roast away. You put in those 2 super powerful fireballs, and maybe even the War Wizard once he's not disordered, and you'll probably get rid of a horde of rabble in 1 turn if you're lucky. But that's what we have here. And then on the other side, the king on Fleabag has been charged by the Alohi, and the bang sticks that I had there are gone. I believe this was after shooting, so they must have been shot off. Yes, must have been. Oh, they're not there. Ah, yes, I think it was Samacris that did manage to shoot them off with her fireball. So yes, that unit of bang sticks that then had 10 damage. All it needed was a mind fog would have done the job, but no mind fog was had. There was a fireball on Samacris though. So that's where my first unit of bang sticks went there. And now it's just Groany by himself. Grupp has been charged by some Gur Panthers, so there's a lot of combats going on. But as far as being effective, the Julius did 5 damage on trolls, which is it looks like there's a token next to them that could just be spilled out. So whether they're wavered or not, I'm not sure, but I don't think it will really matter for the trolls. They do have regen and I do have headstrong. And the Ogre Palace Guard managed to do 7 damage on the rabble, which is pretty good considering they're hindered, but definitely is far away from being able to do anything to them. A 6/6 would still only waver the rabble horde. So yes, things have been stuck in. Oh, and I didn't even mention, but we can see now in this still that the Men-at-Arms Spearmen have gone into my own rabble horde as well. So both rabble hordes are now engaged. Yes, I have stoked the flames of the Basileans, and they have charged in very eagerly. In my turn 2, I countercharge with the rabble into the Ogre Palace Guard, really achieving absolutely nothing. So this was all taken at the end of the turn, and so yeah, those goblin, I don't expect them to do much, but it's 5s and 5s on these guys. It's very easy to get nothing out of that. I should get about 2 damage, but I didn't, unfortunately. So yeah, but the Troll Bruiser is coming in ready to do some damage. He wasn't in charge range, but he is now out of the arcs of anything. So he's nice and safe there, ready to get into battle. Moving right along to the middle, we can see my trolls are fighting back against Julius. I think we managed to do some damage, I hope, but still not enough to take out this guy. He's defense 6. Or maybe I did no damage, because he is defense 6. It would not be surprising if he didn't get hurt at all. But you can see they regenerated very, very well, so that's good on the trolls. They've got one damage where they had 5 before. But the best part, I think, in this turn is I got rid of those Panthers completely with the Winget, and I got rid of the Alohi with Grony Snuck and Grupp together. So they combined their blast energy to the already damaged Alohi, because you may recall that they were suffering some war engine shooting for about 2 turns before they decided to get stuck in. And so over the course of that time, it wasn't so unfeasible that 2 characters could take them out. But again, this is where I didn't learn my lesson from the Select game that I had immediately preceding, was sending in 2 characters to take out something. Because the problem is, you put them both in at the front, it's very easy for you to, whiff it, because they don't have that many attacks, and then in return they get to kill 2 characters quite easily, because you kill one, and then you get to overrun from that character to go straight into another hero and take them out too. So thankfully that didn't transpire, but I did not learn my lesson. I could have just sent in 1, but maybe it was the 2 that was required. So yeah, I've cleared up the left flank, so all I've got to do is worry about the rest of the army. And so in this extra blurry shot, I apologize, I just obviously didn't hold the camera still for just quite long enough. We can see that we have the Bang Sticks flank charge the Men-at-Arms Spearmen, which is really the only way you can deal with the Spearmen with cavalry. So they've gone into the flank. They're going to do a whole bunch of damage to themselves because they've doubled their attacks, and every time they roll a 6 they do damage to themselves, so I don't expect them to be too healthy after this. And then the rabble are just going in the front, so it's a real stacks on into those spearmen, so the poor guys. But I don't think we kill them this turn, and so it'll be grinding on again. The carnage continues in Viv's turn 3, where the goblin rabble that once stood against those Ogre Palace Guard no longer stand now. They are gone, and the Ogre Palace Guard are now looking at a combined charge of 2 troll hordes, which is never a good contemplation. But, the trolls did just whiff against Julius, who has now jumped over them. So that's how we really know that Julius wasn't damaged, because he still had fly. He wasn't even disordered. So that defense 6 angels just jumped over and then started fireballing my trolls in the butt. Hence they have now 3 damage on them, so 2 damage from that fireball, which is okay. I can handle that. But now I've got Julius in the butt, so I'll have to see what I can do about that. Next we also have, well, the Go Panthers. They finished their mission of going into one of my war engines, and so they're going to start chewing away at that, but they're just not that great, so I'm not too scared, and really there's not much left to shoot at now. So if they want to kill the war engines, they can go ahead, because they are not scoring. But this fight here, the Bang Sticks were rightly identified as the major target, the main threat, so the horde of Men-at-Arms Spearmen, have turned to put some damage into the Bang Sticks, because they're not very hard to kill at all, 13-15 compared to the horde of rabble, which are 19-21. And so Samacris has moved in to not only provide some healing, but to do some burning as well. So I think the target was the rabble there, maybe. But they've already got 3 damage on them, so I'm not sure what she was burning, but she was going to come in and do something. And there's the War Wizard back there, also trying to burn stuff, including my 2 little characters that are still running around. But then if we take a look here, the Ogre Palace Guard that are in the rear that were chasing my Troll Bruiser have turned again, bringing them back into the fight. But yeah, so Throg, the Troll Bruiser, is right here as well. So my plan is to double charge or triple charge the bottom Ogre Palace Guard with my 2 Troll Hordes and Troll Bruiser, and absolutely delete them, hopefully, and then see how I can go about taking on the next Ogre Palace Guard, and hopefully not have a Julius in the butt. No one wants a Julius in the butt. So that's my not so good plan. And in turn 4, that's exactly how it happens. The 2 Troll Hordes and the Troll Bruiser combined make short work of the Ogre Palace Guard, and now they're both facing the next round of Ogre Palace Guard, with the Troll Bruiser having flipped around, ready to act as sacrificial lamb. The way that they've charged in, just by luck, purely by luck, is that they are no longer in the arc of Julius. And so the way I've then repositioned the rest of my units, I don't really care about the rabble horde, so they can just stay there, so there could be a rear on the rabble, but I did turn my trolls to face the last horde of trolls to face Julius, so that they are not going to get absolutely demolished themselves, because he will do a lot of damage. He's very, very good. Groany went into Samacris and disordered her, so that does buy me a little bit of time from not being fireballed a lot, and starts the damage on there. And we can see that the Spearman Horde have been removed by the Rabble and Banksticks combined, as well as Grupp. You can see Grupp there up in the top hand. I did bring him in for a bit of fighting because he puts in some nice bit of damage, and he can really explode to a lot of damage. Speaking of more damage, well, there's no longer Panthers here. You can see the base of my Wingit just up there, managed to put in some damage and get rid of them. They were already damaged on 3, so it didn't take much to get rid of them. And obviously I didn't count, I just moved my war engine back, which only took 3 damage, so I haven't even lost my catapult, which is pretty good. But they haven't got much to do anymore, so that's fine. And then, yeah, so I'm ready to take the charge from Julius, whether it be into the rear of the rabble or the front of some trolls. And you can already see right here at the end of the clip that the Troll Bruiser is now acting as chaff for that remaining Ogre Palace Guard horde. Turn 4 for Vivian. Julius goes into the rear of the rabble. They're definitely dead. Samacris goes into the Goblin King. Probably not so dead. And then Ogre Palace Guard into my Troll Bruiser. Maybe dead. But it turns out the only thing that really was destroyed in that round was the Goblin Rabble, for obvious reasons, because when you have that kind of power going into your rear, even if you've got a higher nerve, it just won't matter much at all. So that's what happened there. Otherwise, it's still got my Troll Hordes, and let's see what they can do. Somehow forgetting to record it all for turn 5, we are now in turn 6, the end of turn 6, in fact. And what we can see there is the Sanguinius model of Julius going up against Grupp. A battle surely for the ages, but all it takes is 1 damage to disorder him and he's stuck there forever. Makes it quite hard to get out because he loses his nimble and he loses his flying. Groany is there by himself, he's finished off the War Wizard, and Samacris is gone too, thanks to the trolls that managed to charge in around turn 6. And so what's happened, obviously the Ogre Palace Guard couldn't handle 2 trolls going into them, and so, as well as the Troll Bruiser, they've all kind of wandered off over the next turn. The idea of going into the different, I guess, parts of 6 that make up Control, because Control you have the board divided up into 6 squares, and for each one that you control by having superior unit strength, you get 1 point, 2 points for the one in the middle. And so once I had these units defeated, I was sending the trolls off into different directions to establish my board control. So you've got the ones there, you can see they're heading towards the middle. So that gives me 2 points already. I've got ones on the right, giving me 1 point. I've got one in the bottom, another 1 point, and then I have my Wingit. So we can see, once I move the camera, there on the hill, there's, you see that base on the hill? That's my Wingit that's just flown onto the hill there to then give me 1 more point. So yeah, that's the end of the game. Julius, the last one, which makes sense. Julius is the toughest, the meanest, the baddest of the good guys. But everything else, unfortunately for Vivian, is dead. And it's not often that trolls can get the job done in such a fantastical way. So yeah, this is my first victory. So we've got 1 defeat, 1 victory. Viv was a great opponent. Got me a non-alcoholic beer. I wasn't drinking at this event. Probably good, because I don't think I would have been doing so well by round 4, that's for sure. And yeah, it was good game. He just made a few, I guess, sending out things too early, turn 2. I mean, turn 2 combats can be good, but you really want to make sure that whatever you're going into is going to delete stuff. And yeah, when you're going into Rabble, you want to remove them. Sometimes you don't, but in the case of the Spearmen, having a flank sitting there for the Banksticks to hit, and then having the Ogres just go into, by themselves into the Rabble, because he wanted to keep an eye on my Troll Bruiser, which is fair enough. You know, Troll Bruiser is scary, but is it that scary? I'm not so sure. So, yeah. But otherwise, I like the way the army's going. It looks really cool with its Basilean look, and I hope it keeps turning up to tournaments. And unlike me, going from being just okay at this game, and we just want to become really good at this game. Whether that's possible or not, I don't know, but that's my goal. So that is round 1. Let's get on to that was round 2. Let's get on to round 3. So having won a second game, my reward is to go against Andrew Goodman and his Night Stalkers, something you don't normally want in a single sentence, because Goodman's a good player and Night Stalkers are a good army. And the scenario that is for round 3 at ConVic is kill. You don't normally get kill, And that's not boding so well because this is Night Stalkers. And so this list contains 2 regiments of Scarecrows, 1 regiment of Needlefangs, 3 hordes of Butchers, 1 Planar Apparition, 2 Soulflayer regiments, 1 Shadow Hulk, 1 Dread Fiend with the Orb of Towering Presence. Unfortunately, a useless upgrade when it comes to kill, the only scenario in which it is useless. 1 Butcher Flesh Ripper with the Healing Brew, and 1 Essenishra the Wailing Shadow. So, if you had to compare armies, Goblins versus Night Stalkers, and which one is more killy, I would definitely say the Night Stalkers. And this is a particular example. We've got these Butchers, which are they're probably comparable to Trolls, really. Melee 4+, crushing 2. But they got Fury, so they're definitely better in that way. But then we have the Soul Flayers, we have the Shadow Hulk, Dread Fiend, Butcher Flesh Ripper. These are all very good, and Essenishra is actually fantastic as well because she has such high crushing strength. She can really get around and put some pain on and take things off, especially near the end of the game. So yeah, I'm a little bit terrified, and so I'm going to be playing this game very conservatively. So for deployment, I deployed really according to this tiny little building that was kind of in front of my deployment zone that you can see right here in the middle. I just had to put something on one side and the rest on the other side. So on the left hand side you can see part of the block that is the 2 Rabble Red hordes with the Troll hordes behind. And then right in the middle of the battlefield that we're looking at there, we have Grony Snark, the Troll Bruiser, and Grupp. And behind that building is the Wingit. I do have my war engines here, but they're in the middle to try and see as much as possible, but even whatever they see, all has stealthy, so help me. I don't think I'll be able to do any damage with these guys, but we'll just see. I gotta hope. And so my plan is to... oh yeah, and then the bang sticks, which aren't here, but they're on the right, just waiting for things to get over that hill that you see on the right-hand side. So my whole plan, since it's kill, I don't want to get engaged too early. I want to get engaged, turn 4, turn 5, and just start hopefully just killing some things if I can with the bang sticks. And that's really about it. There's not much else I can do because if I get in too early, he'll definitely chew through me because everything he has is superior to mine. And I don't really have any way of healing. He doesn't have healing either. Well, he does. He does. He has the planar apparition. So that's really the most annoying part. So what I got to do is try and get those soul flayers out, draw them in, kill them. That's quite a bit of points, and then just slowly wait for the end of the game and. Yeah, just hope the differential's big enough that I might win, but I'm just really hoping for a draw here. Just kill as much as he kills of mine. But his deployment, we take a look. We've got the Soul Flayers on the right flank, far right, ready to just scoot down and cause some trouble, but they are opposite my bang sticks, so they're going against something of equal speed. Then we have the block of, one of the main blocks. We have the Butcher Horde with the regiment of Scarecrows there on the left, with the planar apparition there is the Beholder. So normally we're used to seeing a Beholder and thinking that's the Mind Screech. There's no Mind Screech, so it's the planar apparition in this one. You can see the Dread Fiend and then another horde of Butchers behind it. Then moving towards the left side of the battlefield, we now have the Shadow Hulk, and there you can also see now the other Soulflare regiment in the forest. So they're directly in line of sight of my war engines, but I'm not going to be able to kill them because they'll be rolling 6s with half my shots. So any damage I do is very unlikely, and the planar apparition is not far away to heal them up. So as I will find out over the course of the game, I really should just be shooting the planar apparition. And then here's the final horde of Butchers marching along with the Scarecrow regiment and some Needlefangs. And it's really cool in the way that you can just kind of deploy the Night Stalkers as you want, because of that Mind Thirst ability means that they don't have to worry about these kind of little bubbles of inspiring, whereas we always tend to deploy in chunks. Like this army goes, like these units go together because they need all this buff, this unit goes together, but then the Night Stalkers kind of free you of that. And so it's interesting to see how things can just kind of be plonked haphazardly all over the place. So let's get into the battle. So I got first turn. I took it thinking I could just start shooting straight away, because everyone says, oh well, if you can shoot some Soul Flayers, then that's when you can get rid of them. And I mean, with the Mind Thirst out of range, that is the one time that you're likely to just, spike and get rid of them. But that requires you to hit them at least once and damage them at least once, which did not occur. So with the movement, nothing else really moved up. The bang sticks kind of just shuffled forward, just being able to project their threat over that hill, so if anything pops up, maybe we'll take it out. The army really didn't move, like literally. I didn't move anything apart from these small chaffing components. So like, the Wingit, the Bruiser, they just kind of, and Grupp, they moved up just to get ready to pounce on anything and slow it down. Yeah, so it's, not much to say. It's a very lackluster turn 1. Mirroring my own actions, Goodman hasn't moved up. He's moved up more than me. I haven't moved up at all. So we've got one block here that's on the right side that's moved up. The Soul Flayers are still trying to just stay out of range of my bang sticks. Fair enough. On the other side, the Soul Flayers here are still in the forest, so that I'm still trying to hit them on half shots at 6s. So yeah, no, I won't do that. I tried once and realized how bad that was. So for now, I'll start targeting the Shadow Hulk, which has just moved up a bit more, but staying out of the range of my Troll Bruiser, as are all the things on the far left there. As you can see, the Butchers are getting a peek over the hill, but that's about it. So yeah, not much to report. Turn 2, I continue to really do nothing. I try and shoot, but I really didn't have much of a plan as to how to get forward and kill things, and so, as someone once told me, if there's no point in you moving forward, then why do it? And since the scenario is not making me move forward, then I might as well just sit back and just see what opportunities present themselves. And so all I'm really doing is just moving that Troll Bruiser and Grupp, just kind of testing the waters, putting them up offering them up as sacrifice. Now, looking back on this, the problem is when you do offer something up as sacrifice, you do have to try and have consequences for it. And I don't, because my trolls there on the left have no way of really responding to it, thanks to the goblins in the way. I mean, the goblins could shift away, something could be done, but it wasn't... Yeah, I see now that I should have set this up a little bit better, so that while I am enticing, I can just also set my own terms. And also, why did I move them up at all? Why? I could have just kept them back and just allow him to get everything in range. So yes, that's what I'm thinking looking back at this. The bang sticks too are just really just doing all of nothing, just sitting there, waiting for something to go over the hill and then seeing if that's worth chasing. And we will see in his turn 2. Turn 2 and the Night Stalkers have advanced a little bit closer, still staying behind that hill though, so I just can't see them with my bang sticks. The only thing being offered to me, a regiment of scarecrows, which I will not be enticed by because I know they are but a distraction and I will not take that meat. But I am waiting for the Butchers to come across, because that is certainly something I would love to smash into, but for now they will not. And the Soul Flayers stay far away. On the other side of the battlefield, the other Butchers have surmounted the hill, not scared at all really of goblins and trolls, which is fair enough, they're not that scary. Butchers are far more scary, and we have the scarecrows coming over, but everything else just kind of sitting where it is, unsure. You can see on the Soul Flayers there's one wound dice. I have managed to hit them with one shot in my previous turn, but yeah, it didn't roll a sudden double 6 and waver them. Not that a waver would be very helpful, because it's not like we're about to get into combat anyway. So turn 2 also quite uneventful. When will the fighting begin? As we're getting a bit tired of this, I decided to skip my turn, in which again I didn't do all that much, but it was in turn 3 that we finally had some combat. Andrew sent in the Soul Flayers. That's what we see first here. They came into the Goblin Rabble and they just pretty much bounced. They went in, did a little bit of damage, but they just don't actually have the number of attacks to do anything. But you know, they go in as the first wave, so I understand, you gotta set them in. At the same time, we also have the Butcher Flesh Ripper going into my Troll Bruiser, so it's kind of the same. Yeah, they're very similar profiles, so we'll soon see who wins out there. And then the bulk of the army, as it's now kind of come together, you can see there's the Shadow Hulk and the one horde of Butchers and another horde of Butchers behind the hill, and again we have the scarecrows getting on top of the hill and offering themselves to my bang sticks. Now at this point I really should have just started relocating my bang sticks, either completely moving to the left and just leaving this whole flank altogether, or going to the right. A bit harder to do, but I should have just kind of just seen this for what it was. You know, it was too much for them to deal with, and with the hill there I could never really pick the unit I wanted to fight, whereas that's what Andrew was setting up very cleverly by forcing me to have to pick scarecrows. I mean, who wants to charge scarecrows, especially with bang sticks? They'll damage themselves so much, and then it'll just take the counter punch from anything there to kill them. Over here, the little contingent that's on the left is just kind of going up now lonesomely. It doesn't have any Soul Flayers with it, so they're just getting a little bit shot by my little short bows, but it's really hard when they've got stealthy. And finally, just to remind myself, these Soul Flayers have decided that they don't want to just keep standing there, so they've turned to move a bit. But, you know, when you don't have nimble, turning and flying, and it's not as fast as it seems, so these guys are just kind of making time, moving side to side. And also, yes, no, I almost forgot, you can see a little combat there with the dice. That's Grony versus Esanishra. And that is the last time you see Grony. So I did have Grony kind of bouncing around the back there trying to do some stuff. But I just couldn't escape Esanishra because Esanishra is fantastic at killing things like Grony. And Grony is not fantastic at killing things like Esanishra because she has actually got quite high defense. I couldn't have charged her to begin with anyway. And so she just chased me down and chased me down twice to finish me off. So poor little Grony. So at the end of my turn 4, I managed to hit back, and it was with not just the Goblin Rabble, but also the Troll Bruiser, who managed to do a nice withdraw, nimble charge, and get into the flank of those Soul Flayers and really put the hurt on them. So they are now gone, and you can see the Troll Bruiser standing nice and proudly there. Unfortunately now going to have to contend with some further charges from the likes of the Butcher Flesh Ripper there. At the same time, I've now moved up my Wingit to get in the way of the Shadow Hulk because it was getting a little bit too close for comfort. Whether this was the right idea, putting it up at this particular point, I was measuring ranges and I did want to protect a certain unit I had just moved up, which was there, you can see, one of the bang sticks. It's moved through the forest. I did relocate them, but just one. I moved them over here and it was in range of the Shadow Hulk. I couldn't quite get away. Yeah, I wanted it to have this angle, but at the same time, looking back, I have made a terrible, terrible mistake. But we'll find that out in the next turn. A bit of foreshadowing for you there. And then here, the bang sticks also have relocated the other half of them with the king, just trying to get out of range of things. So now I've moved over there, and it's just hoping that this will be enough to not get charged. I just want to keep them alive, essentially. At this point, since it is kill, I need to kill more than him, and sending these guys in on scarecrows is not a way of getting that value. So I'm just trying to relocate, shift around, and maybe confuzzle. It's not really working. Turn 4 for the Night Stalkers, and we have the Scarecrow Regiment going into the Rabble, which is a battle that probably could never really end because they're both quite atrocious in combat. But then we also have a bit more of an interesting combat with the Butcher Flesh Ripper that was actually facing this way being the way of the bang sticks and charging into them. They are fresh, so they should be fine. So that's what I'm hoping, that they'll just be able to handle that. And then at the same time, you can't see, but up there is the wing at its base. So that was then, obviously, it went into the Shadow Hulk, and the Shadow Hulk charged it back, and double won. So it got to stick around. And I don't know why I didn't film it. I thought I would be more ecstatic about that, but I guess, you know, it's just how things happen. But it was a double one, and I remember he stuck around for a turn longer than he definitely should have from a Shadow Hulk. And then over here, the Butchers and the Scarecrows are chasing my bang sticks that have relocated, just trying to get them, and those Butchers still staying off the hill. So annoying. I just want to be able to see them so I can charge them. But that's not helpful, and we've got these two impassable trains that are just not helping. Those Soul Flayers don't actually end up there. What they do is just shuffle around and end up behind the Butcher horde right there, so they're just going to move forward and turn 90 and then move forward, so they're going to be facing somewhat the same direction. So I'm finding myself getting slowly pinned in, and really these guys should have also followed the other bang sticks off to the left and helping out my main army, because running off around here, I mean, it was good. It's good to have provided a distraction to keep his army over here, but really I should have abandoned it entirely and just gone to the other side and, you know, really doubled down on taking out everything on the left side, all his left side army, and then just run away. Which sounds pretty goblin-like. I didn't do that, but I should have. End of my turn 5, I've managed to kill those Scarecrows, which is not really something to write home about, but hey, it's something towards the kill counter. So the Rabble and the Trolls in the flank definitely did the job, and so I've got those Needle Fangs coming at me, so that's what those birds are, as well as those Butchers on the hill. So that's something to contend with, but I think I've got enough. But then when we look on the other side, we can see that the Wingit, as I said, still stuck around. Only 2 damage on it. I think, yeah, he just whiffed, and then he rolled really low. So, yeah, poor Shadow Hulk. Even with melee 3+, it's still still a giant, still got a few number of attacks compared to, say, a whole big unit or something. So yeah, good on you, wing it. But unfortunately, I think, and I didn't mention this before because I didn't record it at the right time, but the Butcher Flesh Ripper, while only a single Flesh Ripper, managed to take out the Bang Sticks. I think they maybe were just out of range of some inspiring, or he just rolled hot. But yeah, those Bang Sticks are gone, and I did not expect that. That genuinely surprised me from the Butcher Flesh Ripper, because it's a 13-15, defense 5. I mean, wounding on 2s, yeah, I get it, but yeah, oh, that was rough. So that's a couple of points there, and you just think about it. Every time you lose something, it's like, that's adding to the kill counter. So yeah, we'll just see how I can come back from that. In the Night Stalker's turn 5, well, finally, the stalemate between the Bang Sticks and all that stuff that was on the right side is over. The Dread Fiend, the dreaded Fiend, has seen his opening and charged right in. I kept on trying to, turn face, and then I would do turn, move 10, turn back, so I'm always facing a front. But the problem is I should have just gone full 20, even though I'll be giving my rear, because then nothing could have gotten me. Just need to get out of arcs, that's all. And so by not getting away fast enough in this particular direction, I invited an attack from the Dread Fiend. And I didn't learn my lesson, because all it took was one Butcher Flesh Ripper to take down, apparently, a whole cavalry unit. And now this guy's come in. And what has he done? Well, he's wavered. You can see the waver token there. With only 3 damage, managed to waver the... and these are inspired Bang Sticks. So that's not good. They're disordered, they're wavered, they're just not feeling good at all. And so... this is not the end of it, because now we have the butchers that have now finally got on the hill. Now it's all safe, of course, so I can't do anything. Can't even charge them with my Bang Sticks, because that'd be cool if I could do a nimble charge kind of thing, but I cannot. And we've got the Soul Flayers backing them up as well, so it's definitely getting very tight over on this side. On the other side, things are not so bad. I'm pretty happy, because the butchers went into the Rabble Horde, and they just don't have enough attacks really to get rid of the Rabble Horde, I think, because melee 4+. It doesn't matter what crushing you got, because yeah, you're wounding a lot, but yeah, so it's going to be maybe 10 damage max. That's putting a nice spin on it. And the Needlefangs have gone to the trolls just to hold them up. And then over here we have my Throg, the Troll Bruiser, getting attacked by the Butcher Flesh Ripper and by Esanishra as well. So he's taking on both, and I don't think he's going to have long to live, but he's still there for now, and that's all that matters. So... yeah, turn 5, yeah, now the battle's really getting in, but still, a lot of my army is still fresh, and I'm hoping to be able to use it. In turn 5, with the Bang Sticks wavered, desperate times call for desperate measures. The king must ride out and meet the enemy, and that's exactly what's happening. We've got the king on Fleabag attacking the Soul Flayers. He need only put on 1 wound in order to prevent their attack, and that's really his fate. So that's what he's gone off to do. He's gone off to attack those. Maybe I should have done the butchers instead, but either way, that's too much damage coming in on my Bang Sticks, and I just need to protect them maybe a turn longer so they could run away? Perhaps. Maybe it's possible. But if we take a look on the other side, I am now countercharging in all kinds of directions. Needlefangs with trolls, the butchers with the rabble, and so hopefully something will die. I'm pretty sure the Needlefangs do, but the butchers will survive, unsurprisingly. And well, now I've finally picked my target for my war engines. The war engines, for the whole time, really have done nothing of note. There's no point mentioning what they were shooting. I think most of the time I ended up shooting the Shadow Hulk because it's the tallest, which is just, just hitting on 6s. But the problem is you have the Planar Apparition healing it. Well, why not shoot the Planar Apparition? And that's what I've done. I've been shooting that consistently, and it's been failing to heal itself. It can heal other things just fine, but healing itself, apparently not. So 5 damage so far. I reckon I can take it down. It's a little bit too late, but, at least I've figured it out now, and I will take that in the future. Goodman's turn 6 in a move that really surprised me, because you can see here that the trolls did manage to kill the Needlefangs, overran, and pretty much got straight into the Butcher Flesh Rippers. Obviously not in contact, not fighting, but they moved forward. But what surprised me, Esanishra and the Butcher Flesh Ripper, having finished with that poor Troll Bruiser, just went right into their rear. I'm like, oh gosh, because obviously the trolls are taller than the rabble, because you can see that rabble there. I've angled in between. That's the problem. I put the nice cute house on top of it, so it appears taller than it is, but it's a height to these guys, the rabble. So of course they can see the trolls. So the Butcher Flesh Ripper just nimbled around, and obviously Sinistra can fly. So off they went into the rear of my poor trolls. So they're going to take a little bit of damage there, and that's not very good for them. You see, a sufficient amount of damage that it wavered them, because you can see that waver token up there, and I think that says 11 damage, which, all things considered, that's actually not too much damage as I thought, but it does mean that them flanking the butchers there is not so sure a thing. Should I try and flank them and then just flip around when I survive? Or should I flip around to deal with what I've got in the front? Well, yeah, we'll have to see what I think about that. At the same time, Andrew's forces are angling towards me now. The remaining horde of butchers, the Shadow Hulk, and the damaged planar apparition. Yeah, there's still actually quite a lot on the battlefield for both of us. And over here, the butchers finally got it to go into my poor bang sticks, and so it's not long for them. They're going to take a lot more damage and just stick around one more turn because of one more double one. I got one more in me. Apparently, the gods deigned to keep my units around just a little bit longer, and the Soul Flayers did quite a bit of damage on my little king there, but not enough to remove him. The kings can be quite good at sticking around, unless they're named Grony. And finally here, just to prove that I too have plenty of units still in the game, I have my 2 troll hordes that are untouched and a slightly damaged rabble horde. So that's pretty good. And obviously the war engines, which in this case for the scenario actually do count to something. And the game could have ended there, but we went into turn 7. So the match that had very little going on, most of the game continues for one final turn. And so I just have the last recording of essentially both the rounds together, so this is just showing what was at the end, and we can see that the trolls took out the Flesh Ripper, the Goblin Rabble somehow took out the Butcher Horde, which, you know, in my mind I can't get that how it worked, but they did, and Sinistra ran away. Because I think I went for the Butcher Flesh Ripper first, because I thought that's easier to kill, then perhaps probably the best thing would have been to go for Sinistra, kill her, and then overrun into the Flesh Ripper, so that probably was the better idea, but I didn't do that. But, you know, we got some points, and that's what's important. But it wasn't enough, so if I went for the big thing, I could have gone for individual, and I guess I wasn't thinking that, you know. Sometimes it always surprises me when people do that to me. They kill 2 individuals with the overrun, or they use an individual to then leapfrog to the next thing, and I'm like, oh yeah, so that's probably some nuanced gameplay I definitely need to drum into my head. The rest of the armies really haven't engaged much across the battlefield, and, you know, you can see the scarecrows here have just decided that, oh, well, I'm just going to stay over here and be points that aren't going to get taken, so that's what they've done, and I should have done more of that with some of my units. I did throw a few of them away, but here, in a spectacular fashion, we have my bang sticks. What happened, obviously they had the double 1 in turn 6, and so that allowed them then to countercharge the butchers along with the king in the rear, and I did 9 damage to the butchers, which is quite a bit. Not enough to reliably remove them, but quite a bit all the same. And so then the bang sticks themselves would die. The Soul Flayers going into the rear of the Goblin King would kill him, but they're still there, so I think maybe they didn't die. In any case, what we ended up with was a 315 point difference between our kill counts. And I believe when you calculate the difference that was required, it was 250 points were required, difference between opponents, so that you could determine win or loss, so it was very close. And you know what really did it? And I didn't film it because I just didn't expect it. I managed to kill the planar apparition, so actually that prevented it from going to the next bracket. That would have given Andrew more points. So the way it was, the blackjack scoring was 14-7, and if I hadn't have killed that planar apparition with my war engines, it would have instead been, 15-6. Not a big difference, but, I'm very happy with that. And I think, just looking back, what I should have done with the bang sticks is relocated them earlier. Once I had forced his army to be where they were, I could have just gotten out and helped a bit more on the other side. But I think my strategy for this overall was quite sound. Not rushing up. There was no reason to rush up. But I should have picked my targets better with my war engines. I was not sure what to pick, and I had in my head, just the quote saying, oh well, if you shoot the Soul Flayers, sometimes you can just take them off. and I was just kept on trying, even though the soul flares he was offering to me to shoot were in cover. So it was a terrible idea because I just didn't have anywhere near the chance to take them off. Like, you need to hit them twice and do high D3s and things like that, especially with the planar apparition just all over healing. So I think my approach was correct. It was just the individual decisions, such as what I did with my bang sticks and maybe throwing out the winglet where it was, and just some of the positioning was what eventually tilted it the wrong way. But gotta say, it's always it's a very intense game with Goodman, and this first time I've faced him with his Night Stalkers, it's always an intense game with him, but I always know it will be a quality one. So I definitely enjoyed it, and I didn't have much brain power for round 4. 4 rounds in a single day. Woo! It's not easy. 1995 isn't that much easier than 2300 for the brain in my head. But onwards we must go to the final round. So it's been loss, win, loss. Where does that place me now? Let's see. So on to round 4, and I'm doing quite middling, but I've come up against a really hard list, and it just shows how many good lists are at ConVic, if this is what's happening when I'm kind of going a little bit down, having lost 2 games thus far. So it's Max's Dwarfs, and it's a pretty powerful list of dwarfs, particularly when it's sporting the Royal Guard formation, which you'll see right at the end. I always put the formations at the end because that's kind of how they happen on Easy Army. But we have 1 horde of shield breakers, which are pretty nasty, but with Brew of Sharpness, extra nasty, and throwing mastiffs just because. Then we've got 2 Ironwatch crossbow troops, just for the actual dedicated shooting, so a bit of plink damage, I believe. 1 Berserker Brock Riders regiment with Sir Jesse's Boots of Striding, and another Berserker Brock Riders regiment with the Brew of Strength. Which one's better? Depends on your opinions, but I think the Brew of Strength's better. It's definitely more expensive. So yeah, gotta watch out for these guys. Bring some speed to the dwarf list, but they are defense 4, so that's nice. Then we have 2 regiments of Mastiff hunting packs with throwing mastiffs, so they're throwing one of their own kind. And I don't know if you'll be able to tell in the footage, but the Mastiff hunting packs, in every throwing mastiff token that he puts next to his units to denote that those that still have throwing mastiffs, they're all pugs of different sizes. And they all look so derpy, with the eyes pointing in all kinds of directions and the squished face. So it's all pug-based throwing mastiffs. All the dwarfs are mantic dwarfs, but we've got I think the 3D printed pugs. It's very cute. Then we have 1 Berserker Lord, mounted on a Brock and with an Gnome Glass shield. Really quite a nasty combination, I gotta say. They always surprise me how good these Berserker Lords can be. Then we have 1 Stone Priest with Conjurer Staff, Bane Chant 2, Radiance of Life, swapped out from the Surge that he normally would come with, and Scorched Earth 2. So he's got plenty of spells, he's healing the stuff up, and he's got Conjurer Staff to help him do it. So very good little support piece. And then here we come, it's the Royal Guard. So the Royal Guard is a formation that comes in Clash of Kings 22, and it's unique to the Imperial Dwarves, and you get 2 Bullwalker regiments with throwing mastiffs. Bullwalkers are the phalanx, spear-wielding dwarves, and then we have 1 horde of Ironclad. So they're the non-spear wielding defense 5 dwarves, and they have Hammer of Measured Force and also a throwing mastiff. And then finally 1 dwarf army standard bearer, who is now with this formation gains very inspiring and an aura of elite. So what we have from this whole formation put together is quite a nasty combination that can then work with other components of the army, particularly the horde of shield breakers, which are already vastly enhanced thanks to their Brew of Sharpness and hitting on 3s. So now they're hitting on 2s and they have elite. So when my brain started to put that together, I got very shocked. The problem is my brain didn't put this together until about halfway through the game when they were bearing down on me, and I was like, oh no, they're really tough. And I did not pay them the respect that they deserved until that point. So you'll get to see that happen live. But you can see this army is quite formidable. It has a lot of unit strength and quite a bit of units for a dwarf army. And that's what you get when you start having so many of these now infantry lists for dwarfs, because there was 2 things that changed that really made the dwarf infantry list interesting and viable. And that was obviously the formation, because that pretty much decides half the list. It's so expensive to bring, so once you have that, that's half your list done. But also the Stone Priest being able to change Radiance of Life from the Surge. So before, you didn't want to bring one into this kind of army because you were having to spend points, essentially, to have surge in an army without surging targets. So you then felt obliged to bring all the stuff that you could surge, the elementals. But now it's Radiance of Life, and that works perfectly. So it's a great army. So we're going to see how I go fighting it in the scenario that is Invade. So here's a quick summary of my deployment as I was panning my camera around the table. So looking first at the left flank, you can see my bang sticks, one unit sitting out there by themselves. This is the first time I ever split up the bang sticks, but it was because I had the way the blocking terrain was on the table, there wasn't quite room either side for the whole formation to go together, and I thought, oh, might as well split it up, maybe that's a great idea. And spoiler alert, it kind of isn't, like, well, we'll see. It worked in a way, but it just meant that one side was always compromised compared to what it could have been. So then moving right along, we can see that my army is just kind of sitting right in the middle, in between those two pieces of blocking terrain, so that's the whole, trolls and goblins, but then on the other side is the other part of the bang sticks that are going around this tower. So you can see that, yeah, these two components couldn't really go together, and I have tried in some test games where I would have the bang sticks go up in like, in kind of a single file kind of thing, but that never really works out, so this seemed like the next best thing. Now looking at his army, what I've got to face, well, we see those planes there. Those planes are actually the Berserker Brock Riders. So there's the two regiments there, and I can't remember. One had a star on the wing, and that was apparently the strength one, but I can't remember. But we know one has Jesse's Boots of Striding, one has Strength. Chances are the Striding one is the one that's in the cover right now, because that would just make sense. So let's just say the ones with the blue are the ones that have Striding, the Boots of Striding. And then you can also see that one of the Bullwalkers, I think, there. Yeah, that might be one of the Bullwalkers. With the Berserker Lord, which is his own plane, looking like the Red Baron, with one of the regiments of the Throwing Mastiffs, well, not the regiment of Throwing Mastiffs, the Hunting Mastiff pack behind that. So then when we move along further, we can see a bit more of the rest of the army, so then it's all on that hill, which we can get nice and zoomed in on here. There you see, we've got that horde of shield breakers, I believe is on the right. No, shield breakers are on the left. There's a horde of them, which is split into two regiments of what were once called the dwarf miners. So they've got the pickaxes, which makes for, good shield breakers, because shield breakers are supposed to be armor piercing. So those are the shield breakers, and on the right is the ironclad horde. And behind those are the two regiments of the crossbows, the Ironwatch crossbows, and you can see the dwarf standard bearer there with a cute little banner that has the plane on it. So it all kind of makes sense. It's got the flying motif all over. So you see the air force of the dwarves and then the actual dwarves. But it's a very impressive looking dwarf army, as you can see, because it's got a high model count, which always looks good with dwarves. And then there on the left, I believe, is the other unit of Bullwalkers, the regiment. You notice they both don't have spears, but it's because most people don't really go for dwarfs and spears. And I did say that most of the dwarfs here are mantic, but I lied. It's only a couple of the dwarfs that are actually mantic. The rest seem to be old GW ones. And then you can see more of the hunting pack there. You can't really make out that they're pugs, but believe me, they are derpy looking pugs. So that's the deployment. So in summary, we've got a whole bunch of Brock Riders facing down against one half of my bang sticks, whereas the other half of my bang sticks is unopposed. So yeah, we'll see how that goes as we then launch into turn 1. So I get turn 1, which is pretty good, but I find that I don't have many targets to really shoot at because all this stuff is rather short, and there's a lot of annoying in-between terrain. As you can see, there is a forest there on the left where my winglet is currently in, and that forest is right in the center of the board. And so what I'm trying to do is I'm marching up here. You can see the whole group of my 3 trolls. They're all aligned so that they don't end up in those forests, because I've said it once, I'll say it again, hindered trolls are not good. So I'm just trying early to avoid that situation, but we'll see how far I get. So yeah, we're all just slowly moving up because it is invade and I need to get there at some point, because if I let the dwarfs get over, I won't be able to shift them back. They're really hard to kill, so I need to at least start getting the battle happening on the other side. Moving over to the left a bit, we can see Grony Snark is just going up on the little bit of space that's on the left side of that forest, and he's already got a damage on him because, yeah, how lucky am I? I managed to roll a 1 for his movement. Thankfully, he was all by his lonesome, so the damage was done just to himself. But yes, it's not a good start when that's maybe foreboding the kind of damage that will be done to him. And then further on the left, so that left flanking half of the bang sticks, along with the king, I've moved them right up. You know, you move up the full 20, you turn to the right, you face the flanks. And so it'll be up to Max to then figure out how he wants to respond to that with the big blocks of infantry that he has right there. So that's pretty fun. Unfortunately, the rest of my army is very slow and will take a while to take advantage of this distraction, so maybe I timed it a bit poorly. So maybe jump the gun. And then over here I'm a bit more tentative with the Troll Bruiser and the other bang sticks, just trying to tease out my charge range versus all those Brock Riders over there. So I'm just not trying to jump into anything. So on Max's turn 1, we can see on the right flank that the Brock Riders are trying to get into range so that they can embark upon their charge, but they're also attempting to stay in the various terrain that they're in. So we've got these ones here, the blue ones that are sitting in the forest. We've got his Berserker Brock Rider being screened by some of those the dogs, and then we also have the other Berserker Brock Riders that are behind the difficult terrain. So that's just not giving me many good options for my bang sticks to go into. I only have one bang stick on this side as well, so that's something I have to contend with. So already now, as this turn is progressing, I'm seeing that one bang stick versus one Brock Riders may not be enough to get enough damage to get rid of them, because they have quite high nerve and they're fearless, so you really have to just get rid of them because they hit back with their thunderous charge, especially if there's the one with the crushing strength. I'll be in trouble. Moving to the center line where we have all the dwarves coming off the hill. And indeed they have. They've gone at the double to get right off those two hordes, leaving those Ironwatch crossbows sitting on the hill to do some plink damage into whatever they can, starting I think with shooting at the likes of Grony Snark on my Winget, which are scouting out forward. And then a small portion of the army has turned to face my bang sticks that have come up the side, the other regiment of Fleabag Riders. And so that's the Bullwalkers and one of the dog regiments. So yeah, I haven't made his old army turn, but I've forced him to rearrange enough that he's trying to definitely make sure there's no flanks being given up here. So let's see what I can take advantage of in my turn. So in my turn, the army continues to move up. So this is just turn 2, so I'm actually coming up to the side of that building there. So I'm getting to the midway point, and that's important because this is invade after all. But then we see the back lines are getting invaded. So my unit of bang sticks that I managed to just sneak to the side managed to circumnavigate all of those troops. So there were Bullwalkers there and those dogs, because I could see the Ironwatch rifles on the hill. And I don't think he's ever had this situation where his Ironwatch rifles were actually elevated above his regular troops, and so they've always been kind of that back line that was shooting at other stuff, through cover. And so, he just didn't see the fact that these guys are elevated, so therefore high 5 and very visible and easy to get to for my bang sticks, which can just, with their nimble, bang bang, get right around all this kind of stuff. So in they go, and they managed to very quickly destroy them. It was a flank charge. Unfortunately, that also meant you can see the damage dice next to my own unit there. It's in double digits now, so I think that says 10. So they've done 10 damage to themselves. So they are very fragile at this point, and Max knows it, which is unfortunate. I also brought in Grony Snark just to ensure, but I needn't have, because he managed to do so much damage. But also I wanted to get him out from where he was. You can see he's taken 4 damage. That is from his own damaging himself, but also from being shot at by those Ironwatch rifles. They've been very lucky in taking damage off him, so it's time to get him out of there. That was my reasoning anyway. On the other side, not so lucky. So of all the charges that I decided to pick, I went for the screening dogs. There was a method to my madness. It was because this is the unit that does not have the boots of striding that was given to the other one, which was just as well because it had to go over an obstacle. But that would have been better here, because then I could have charged right into those into the Brock Riders, which I have. Thankfully, they won't be able to charge me because they can't see me. But the idea was I would charge in, kill these little dogs, and then turn one way or the other to face the flank of either the Bullwalkers that are right there, or to face the flank of the Berserker Brock Riders there, or even just continue on out of here. But unfortunately what has happened, even though I did 7 damage, which is actually remarkably low for these guys, they should do a lot more than 7 damage, I think I only did a very small amount of damage to myself because I just rolled very poorly, and then to add to that, I didn't get rid of them at all. I don't even think I wavered them. So that was not fantastic, and so now I'm kind of just stuck where both the other units can just turn to face me, and there's not much I can do about it. That's not great, but I did bring along the Troll Bruiser just to add some inspiring, and I don't think he's going to get charged, which was initially my fear. So yeah, a bit of good. I've got a bang stick unit right in his back line, facing the rear of all his units, which is very interesting. But then this bang stick failed to get through, and so this is kind of what happens when you split them up. One did have the elite already. Well, he didn't. The guy couldn't keep up, but this one definitely didn't have elite nearby. So you can see that the damage potential starts to get considerably worse as we lose that. So Max's turn 2 actually took a really long time for him to decide what to do, which is fair enough. You know, you've got these bang sticks in the back. They have a high potential for causing a lot of damage because they're facing a lot of rears, but they're very fragile. So the question is, how much shooting do you need to get rid of them? Which is a good question. So he still obviously has the other Ironwatch crossbow troop there. They're just sitting there ready to go, and they could be shooting. But the problem is they have pot shots, so in order to pivot and do that, they will then be shooting at -1. So that's already making it quite hard to make sure you reliably put up enough damage. I mean, really, all you need is 1 damage. But, you know, that's still not very reliable when you have a limited number of shots, such as with the troop. So, what he was thinking of was something very reliable to get that damage was then to turn around one of the units that has the throwing mastiffs. But which one was the question? So, the Bullwalkers and the little troop of regiment of dogs on the left had already thrown their mastiff at these bang sticks in turn 1. So they no longer possess that anymore. And so the only units that contained any throwing mastiffs still were those 2 hordes. And so he was a lot of him thinking about turning them this way and that, because in order to obviously do it, they have to do a full reform to throw those dogs. Thankfully they don't get any negatives because that's just part of the rule of the throwing mastiff, but one needs to turn that way. So it was trying to figure out which one should turn that way, because I mean, dwarves are already slow, so if they're wasting one turn doing a full reform to shoot behind them, and then doing next turn doing again another full about phase to turn the other way again so they can start marching in the right direction, that's definitely slowing down the whole game plan. And I mean, I'm happy to be making this kind of problem for him. It was very interesting, but I just wish I didn't damage myself so much. But that's what you get for getting a flank, so I shouldn't complain too much. Down here though, to kind of save himself from being charged, or me taking advantage of the fact that he's still going to be turning around, he has sent in these Brock Riders across the difficult terrain to smash into the first of my rabble. Obviously, I don't really care about this because, you know, these are rabble. They're supposed to be the first line of being hit. They take the damage. They're just, you know, meat bags in the way of my trolls that'll eventually get through. So that is fine. That's according to plan. On the other side, though, well, I'm just getting countercharged by those dogs. Nothing else can really get in because thankfully I wasn't in the arcs. But he has turned those Berserker Brock Riders to eventually demolish my poor bang sticks, because that will happen. And the Bullwalkers are just kind of going towards my troll, but they couldn't. I don't think they could charge him, or didn't want to, because yeah, he's pretty good. But yeah, so this is the situation, and it's not particularly fantastic, but that's what happens when you bounce. So I bounced off the chaff unit, and these are the consequences. And maybe I shouldn't have been so eager to jump in, but ultimately I'm regretting just having these bang sticks split up. So yeah, and so the shooting was sufficient. When you have those throwing mastiffs, you know, they're very good. They hit on 4s, they got piercing 1, so that's already going to easily put down 1 wound, and that's all you need. I already had 10 damage on me, and I'm 13, 15. You don't need to roll much to get rid of that. I did have my inspiring nearby, thanks to Granny Snark, but it just wasn't enough. But it was interesting, the Ironwatch crossbows did completely miss. And so he was very relieved that he did turn, because there was an instance where he was just thinking, well, what's the point of turning any of my units around? Why not just shoot with the crossbows? Like that should be enough. But like I said, you know, it's a limited number of shots. They have negatives to hit. It's just because they move, and then it's pot shots. Actually, it's -2, so it's 6s, and yeah, they completely whiffed. And so he was really, really glad he had turned around. So. Yeah, this is the first time I've got my bang sticks into such a crazy situation, and it was really fun to do that. And a lot of Max's mates came around and hassling him for allowing this to happen, because I understand that Max is quite a good player, and he is a good player. I'm seeing it here because the way he's placing all his dwarves so perfectly in line and making sure nothing is really exposed unless he wants it to be. But yeah, even then, you know, this kind of thing gets overlooked. And yeah, my goblins got in there, but he addressed the situation. So they are gone, and there goes my little trick. It was fun while it lasted, but that is the fate of the bang sticks, unfortunately. So with footage taken from at the end of turn 3 for me, we can see what the trolls managed to do with those offered brocks. They took them out quite quickly. The only thing that I can say I did poorly, and I'm not sure why, is what I didn't do with these trolls. So you see the way that these trolls are facing? Why didn't I not change their facing? Why are they facing this way? Because they're going to have to turn around, not only to fight, but also to actually complete the scenario. So looking at this being now he's measuring, so actually Max is doing his stuff. What's going on there? I don't know. But yeah, they're facing the wrong way. So I should have reformed after the combat and had them facing towards the now being measured from, I think they're shield breakers. No, ironclad horde. So yeah, that was silly. And so we can see the things that I set up to protect them from a charge potentially. I put out my winglet and I put out good old Grupp Longnail, but I need not have worried because those guys are facing the wrong way, the whole horde of ironclad, so nothing to worry about there. But yes, it's just silly that I didn't face those trolls away. Still annoyed about it. Now this rabble horde is now moving up. It's gone beyond the midline and is now approaching his side of the table, and I'm just trying to get them into a place where they can be scot-free out of the way from, well, anything hopefully. So they've just moved there, and then over here, well, actually this is already after Max has started moving his stuff, so I'll have to kind of backtrack and say what happened. So in my turn, on turn 3, I withdrew the bank sticks, which got wavered by those dogs. So I withdrew them back. They can go back. They first withdraw 1 inch, and then they went back 5 inches, which is half their speed. So they got well out of the way of the arc of those Brock Riders, so they won't get that flank charge, which you saw that was going to happen. So that got me out of there, and then I sent in my Troll Bruiser to kill the dogs, because I guess I was just annoyed at the fact that they still existed. This probably wasn't required. Shouldn't have done it, because now what we have here, you can see that the Throg, the Troll Bruiser, is being front charged. I turned to face once I killed the dogs. Front charged by the Berserker Brock Riders, those planes, and also getting flank charged by the Berserker Lord. So yeah, it's kind of offering him up. I mean, I did need to take out those dogs, I suppose, but at the same time it would have been better served to keep him away. So yeah, that gap opening now in Max's turn 3 has allowed the Bullwalkers to charge my bang sticks, while everything else can take care of the Troll Bruiser by himself. And that Troll Bruiser is quite precious for these kind of scenarios, because he is that free, that one unit strength that can help me out. And he's the only source of inspiring along this side. So I probably shouldn't have charged him in. I should have kept him back out of arcs and things like that. But here we are. So yeah, not pleased with that. So having shown you a little bit of what was happening in Max's turn 3, we can see that the rest of the army is just shuffling forward, really quite slowly, because those dwarves had to turn around. So the Ironclad are facing the right way now, and the other unit of shield breakers is advancing and throwing their throwing mastiffs at the winglet so as to taking some damage and gotten wavered. That's a little waver token next to him, so that's not great. We can see in the top left hand corner I've got my 2 kings, King on Fleabag and Grony Snark. I'm trying to cause some problems around there, but when I charged the Stone Priest, hoping to take that out, because that is really one of the linchpins of this army, is the Stone Priest and the Standard Bearer. So the Stone Priest was something I could charge. I bounced completely. I whiffed with all my attacks. He missed, and that's the problem. He's only got 5 attacks and they hit on 4s. So if it just chooses that it doesn't want to hit, then that can happen. And so yeah. Grony Snark not doing so great this game, quite disappointing. But then if we look on the other side, so just getting through all this, he's deciding on how he should combat reform in order to do something next turn. But ultimately the takeaway is the Troll Bruiser perished, which is fair enough, because Berserker Riders and Berserker Lord are not enough, far too much to take on a Troll Bruiser who's only got a poor 12-15 nerve, so he went down very quickly, and we have the Ironclad that kind of puts a little bit of damage on the bang sticks, but the bang sticks totally survive, so that's pretty cool. So he's just wondering if he can then charge them, so we shall see in turn 4. So at the end of my turn 4, not as much combat has been happening. I'm just trying to now get across the center line by moving those trolls up. They're a bit stuck behind each other in some accidental layering that's occurred. But at least they're coming up, and I've got the wing it in the way to just hopefully stop any of those charges. When I say I have it in the way, I actually didn't choose to have it there because it is wavered. So that's a little bit annoying. It's just kind of blocking up the lines. Those cheeky dogs that they threw. Wavered my poor winglet. Looking over on the right, we can see that my goblins will be engaged. This is in the future now, so this is Max's turn 4. So I moved them up to provide some support for the bank sticks so that they don't get obliterated, because I knew he was going to get into them. So I brought up my troop, the opposite, the horde of rabble, hoping that they would easily, because they're untouched, so they should be able to weather at least one charge from the Brock riders, but we'll see. Perhaps that was a miscalculation. And there's also no inspiring here, so there's a great gamble that I've taken here. But I am getting quite tired, you know. It's game 4 of the first day. 4 games in a day is not something I've ever done before, so definitely pushing the limits here. And then looking back at the dwarven forces, you can see in the back lines there, I'm just trying to run amok. So into the standard bearer, I've sent my king on Fleabag, who just doesn't really do all that much, and same with my Grony Snark going into this time, because he couldn't see the Rune Priest, he had to just go into the back of the shield breakers, because they do have a lower defense. Not that it really matters to Grony Snark, he can take out pretty much anything, but I wanted to start doing some damage to that horde before I got into it with the rest of my forces. So just trying to dismantle his army, but it's proving very difficult indeed. Over on the top right also we can see that Grupp there on the hill took out the Iron Watch rifles, good on him, but now the Berserker Lord is chasing him down, which is not so great. He's pretty tough, but not when he is getting hit in the butt. Not that it makes any difference to an individual, but it does make a difference to an individual with ensnare. You'd like him facing the right way, and I should have just turned him around after I did that. So you can see a lot of the decision making is kind of falling by the wayside as we're playing this game, because there's just a few things where I'm just, particularly the combat reforms, you know, these are the real key moments in a game. It's not the combats themselves, it's how you come out of the combat to then move on to the next thing. Will you be slow and take a while to get to the next thing because you didn't pivot the right way, or you're opening yourself up to things? It's that kind of stuff. We see here the aftermath of the Berserker Brock charge on my poor goblin rabble, and it turned out it was only 4 damage, which is pretty good. It says turn 5 there, but it's me recording at the start of turn 5 what Max did in turn 4. So yeah, the rabble holding on, and I think my other bang sticks are also holding on there, but we just can't see them, unfortunately. Whereas if we take a look here, we see that the Ironclad Horde have gone into my rabble, which are already quite damaged, 14 damage on them, and so they'll definitely get through those with some of the buffs that they've got already. They've got the Hammer of Measured Force, which doesn't really matter much against goblins, but it still won't take very long to get through them just by the sheer weight of attacks, and hopefully that means my trolls can get through and churn through them. But that is what has me concerned, because yes, I have a lot of trolls, but they hit on 4s. I'm going to have to get through terrain to get there, and it's these are tough opponents, so you know, it's hitting on 5s, wounding on 3s. It's not really assured that I'll get that many through to get through that really high nerve that they have, and they have headstrong, so you really gotta get them in order to get that payoff. Otherwise, the rest of the forces are now starting to cross that midway point. The shield breakers, the bulwarkers, and the regiment of dogs, which I really wish I had taken out a long time ago, but here we are. So, is this enough to stop them from getting across? I'm not sure. We've got a forest that'll definitely slow them down a bit, but yeah, I don't have anything left in the back apart from there's one horde of trolls, but one horde of trolls, you can just see the top of one of their fists, probably not be enough to take on all of this. So now jumping to turn 6, because I didn't take any footage of turn 5, because we're on the last game of the first day, 4 games so far, and I'm getting a bit tired, but that's okay, we can still figure out what happened, because I don't think it was all that much. So what we can see here, that the trolls that were moving up have decided to forego trying to take on that Ironclad Horde, of which was engaged for quite a while, at least the 2 turns, with the rabble. So it took 2 turns for them to chew through some rabble, which were already damaged thanks to the Brocks previously. So the trolls used that as a distraction to just kind of get up into his half of the board. So I now have 6 unit strength over there, which is pretty good. It's not bad. But then, when we go take a look down here, we can see that the Shieldbreaker Horde has charged my other trolls. which is providing a nice convenient way for that shield breaker horde to now cross onto my side and engage with the trolls and start reducing my unit strength on my own side, which is definitely not good. And these are the shield breakers that have all the kind of bonuses. I think they got the Brew of Sharpness. Then there's the Elite Aura from a nearby Stand Bearer, who may or may not be nearby, I'm not quite sure. But they are hindered at least. But these trolls already have 3 damage on them. From where I'm not sure, but they do have 3 damage on them, and this is not good for them. So that's just happening at the start of Max's turn 6, so this is being filmed at the end. And the dogs are going into one of my war engines, which really doesn't matter at all. It's just, you know, just attrition at this point. But yeah, I've got my trolls on his side, and I'm just hoping that they can live for just long enough that I can at least maybe get close to a draw. Because you see, we got, well, that's yeah. So there's an Ironclad, there's a Bulwark Regiment, Shieldbreaker Horde, and dogs, and I've got just the 2 hordes of trolls. So not looking good. That's not a good balance of things, and I have no real easy way to get rid of all the stuff that's on my side as well. So I'm not quite sure how I'm going to get out of this pickle, but this is turn 6, so I better do it soon. There may not be a turn 7. So we come to the end of turn 6, and this is the end for me. Unfortunately, turn 7 did not eventuate, and what we see is the victory of the shield breakers over my trolls. They defeated them, thanks to Brew of Sharpness combined with Elite. That is a combination that no troll can stand up to, that many attacks particularly. And then we also have the other trolls, the 2 expeditionary trolls sent into his zone. One of them got taken down by the Brock Riders, and were there to be a turn 7, I am now not sure which way I would face those final trolls. Do I take the attack from the Brock Riders, or do I take the rear from something else? It's the Ironclad as well. I mean, it's hindered Ironclad, so you'd think I'd get through it, but either way, it's not a good situation. So perhaps it's good it didn't go to turn 7, because I didn't end up losing the entire army at that point. So yeah, it's what was going to be a close victory, but once I lost those trolls and the other things, well, both the trolls, it became a decisive victory for Max, who played it all very well. As I said, he was always making sure that all of his units were looking after each other. There were no flanks that he didn't want to give me, and I didn't do myself any favours by doing a few of the key mistakes, such as not reforming my trolls properly, not turning Grupp the right way. I mean, he's still alive, he's over there. But all of these things could be doing so much more in this game, and also just not really having a real decisive plan. I did do some fun, cool stuff with my bang sticks, but at the same time I didn't capitalize on the disruption those bang sticks brought. So it's a similar situation to it with Andrew Goodman. I didn't really know what to do with my bang sticks at that point. Like, I did have an idea, holding something off and then using them later, but I never got to plan B, the next phase, the next step, if you will. So, that is it for day 1. We have 1 victory and 3 defeats. Not a great start, but it is quite tough competition here. There is a lot of good players, which is not really an excuse. I should be one of them. But I'm just looking forward to still the 3 games the next day. In fact, this is probably the first time I've been doing one of these 2-day tournaments, of which I only have attended one before this, which was Clash of Kings in Canberra. But this is the first time I have finished one of these the first day and still felt pretty good. Like, I'm not like super fatigued, even though it is 4 games and I was like not making the best decisions, but I felt like I was playing a lot worse a lot earlier in Clash of Kings than I was here. So I think my my wargaming muscle is getting a bit more worked, and I can last a bit longer in these kinds of games rather than before, where I just get too fatigued too quickly. That said, it's definitely still taxing, and tomorrow's going to be 3 games of 2300, which I don't know if I really noticed the extra points in terms of brain power, but it definitely will be nicer just having the 3 games and ending a little bit earlier. But this was, it was a great day. There were plenty of drinks to be had. As I said, there was non-alcoholic beverages that are available in the bar, which is good for me because right now I'm not drinking alcohol, and it was nice to have something that wasn't just soft drink, because I don't want to be drinking soft drink non-stop, and I also don't want to be drinking water non-stop. So something that just kind of to have was nice. So those Heineken Zeros. Doesn't taste as good as the normal Heineken, but what are you going to do? What do I think of my list is probably the final question at this point. So this is the 1995 list. I won't have to use this one tomorrow, thankfully. The next day it's using 2300 points. So I don't have to worry so much, but it is essentially the same list, but with just a few more bits. which I'll go over tomorrow. I don't want to spoil the list. But at this point, I think that while it's nice to have the trolls, I might be leaning in too much. In fact, it was said that perhaps I could go just 2 trolls by one of my friends, and I thought, well, that's interesting. I've always gone for the 3 trolls. They were in my list first. 3 trolls, 2 rebel hordes, and then figure out what I can do with the remaining points. But taking out those trolls, well, that might be an interesting opener. Maybe I can put in some minces. I didn't have minces at this time, and that was the whole thing. You know, I kind of decided this list back in February. I had said, this is what I'm taking. I need to paint all this, and so you can't really build up extras when you're going to only just make that painting deadline based on what you've planned in that list. And at the same time, you're doing a bit of playtesting, changing things out, but the kinds of things I was tweaking in my list were really just very fine points of, like, maybe I'm taking out one individual and turning it into a unit. That's like how the Wingit got in there, and took out Magua and Joe's. Like, these are things that are pretty easy and quick to paint. They're not, you know, big commitments as a mincer mob would be. You know, putting in a mincer mob, there's no small task. You got to get the mincers, you got to build them, you got to paint them, and then put them on the nice bases that I like to try and make. And it's, yeah, I just couldn't just suddenly put in some mincers as I figured out maybe I wanted them in the end. And I'm not sure if mincers would work, but you know, they do have the big shield, and they have Thunder 1, Crushing 1, with a kind of a randomized attack, so they definitely would do the work, and they might last a bit longer than these trolls, but it would be interesting to try them out anyway. So yeah, I'm quite happy. It's still getting that 1 win against the Basileans. That was pretty good. The losses in the other cases, I can see in which case I could have done better, and so hopefully the idea is I remember these ideas of what I could do better in future, but no one can be really sure. You know, when you're actually coming to do the wargaming on the table, you have all these ideas beforehand of how you're going to do things, but really there's only the 2-hour slot when you're doing the things that you hopefully remember some of those tactics, such as, you know, the cool idea you had for deployment, or the way you should always be positioning your chaff, things like that. And yeah, and I mean, also this army doesn't really have any typical chaff. Like, you know, maybe some fleabag sniffs would be pretty cool. Speaking of chaff, I don't have any made up, but I do have a whole bunch of old wolf riders with bows and stuff, so they could be the fleabag rider sniffs easily. So maybe they'll be in future lists. So we'll just have to see, but watch on for my next video, which will be covering the next 3 games all at once. Again, I think this format's fine. How I went against my next 3 opponents at 2,300 points. So elevated points levels, completely different scenarios. It was going to be good, and I was looking forward to it. So until then, please like this video. You can comment on this video, I don't really care, but you can definitely tell me how I did badly, and I will take that on board. For the next game. Unfortunately, that won't influence any of my games in the next video, because that's already happened in the past, so you'll just have to see the post-mortem of that and then go, oh, well, he still did the same things. So yeah, hopefully I'll take it on board in the next video.